welcome to the new rendition of Tarot Tuesday with Reverend Adam Hayden Ministries. I am your host, Reverend Adam Hayden, and today we are preparing for a big change in our political system over here in the United States. And so this reading, I figured, would be the best time to sit there and touch upon these matters. And so for those who don't remember, with my Tarot Tuesday, I pull 3 cards. These cards represent the previous week, the current week, and the week that is to come. As we go forward, we're going to see how everything interconnects with each succeeding week. So this is the first episode of Season 2 of Tarot Tuesday with Reverend Adam Hayden. So for people who don't know, I also use the Llewellyn Tarot. I'm very drawn to the Welsh traditions and Arthurian legends. It's sort of a family history, so to speak. And so the cards I pulled kind of alarmed me. And so I had to take a step back and really align with whatever the cards are telling me. So the first card I got from this last week was the Lady of the Fountain. That card is the card for justice. And I think the political scene here in the United States has really seen a lot of things in the last year, not just with the pandemic, but civil rights, violence, storming the Capitol. We've seen a lot of things that, if my previous viewers will remember, I had been mentioning all along. And because of the rightness of those readings, I had to take a step back. I did a lot of shadow work since the last rendition of Tarot Tuesday. And it wasn't until working with Matt Aaron's book, Psychic Witch, which I don't have on my person right now, but it allowed me to really open up and accept the fact that, yes, I am indeed psychic. These things did start happening. And so I had to take a step back and do some of my own personal work to build the confidence that I'm not foreseeing what is going to happen. I'm seeing what's possibly going to happen. And so for the last half a year or so, I have taken a step back. I quit doing Welsh Witch Radio, and I quit doing a lot of things and started focusing more on my own personal inner work. And now that we're on the other side of 2020, we are now in the year 2021, it was time to sit there and get back out. And thanks to a lot of friends within the International Metaphysical Ministry, I've done a few videos with them. And so my confidence is back. I got a nice setup going on over here, learned how to do green screens, got a green screen gifted to me. And so it was time to go ahead and get back to doing Tarot Tuesdays, Fairy Fridays, and we'll see where else we're going to mix into the next future. So back to the reading. The card I picked for the last week was Justice. And honestly, whenever I see this card, I think of our dearly departed Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She has always been the symbol of justice in my life and actually is an inspiration to me. So for those who don't know, I also use the book, and there's a reason why I do, and it has to do with my own mental health issues. I have bad memory issues, but it's not the fact that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's the fact that I need those keys, and that's why I use the key words in here, and so I can align the rest of myself to the energies and spirits associated to those individual cards. So I don't care what all the ableists out there sit there and say that, oh, I'm not going to believe someone who uses a book. Well, I'm sorry, but that's pretty ableist in my account, and I have no shame about using it in my practice. So that it is what it is. So, like I said, the first card I pulled is the Lady of the Fountain. It's symbolic of justice. Now, what people need to realize is the Lady of the Fountain, as part of the Arthurian myth, is a lady of sovereignty. She is the earth indweller herself. And so when we see this card pop up, we know there's some really big stuff going on in the world around us, especially in the last week. And we've seen that with those who were in the Capitol riots and stuff getting held accountable for those actions that they did. Whether justified or not, I only hear what the news say and what people in my circle of influence who are connected to these things tell me. That's how I get my information. But then I also get information from them over there. And the spirits of the Undeadian and stuff will give you the knowledge you need. And so, justice with Lady of the Fountain, being a lady of sovereignty, means that she's upset. There is a change in regime. We hear this like in the movie Miss of Avalon, which I absolutely love. And I know there's people out there that have heard about what Mary Zimmer Bradley did to her own child. It becomes a stickler point within certain arenas, but I still think a good work is a good work, even if it's by someone who's crass, vulgar, and perverse. So, from Miss of Avalon, we see the phrase, "What of the old stag when the young stag is grown?" It means there's a change of sovereignty going on. And so with this, we see the change from Republican Trump to Democrat Biden. Now, I'm not going to go into my own personal political views, but I can see that this is a change from the old to the new. And naturally, the old regimes are going to be fearful for these changes. They've recently got power. They recently got to extend the influence of their ideologies. And so, with that in mind, now that we're seeing the change of the guard, we're going to see a lot of pushback from, the opposing political force. Excuse me. So, what this card's telling us is that there is a change in the regime. And basically, it is the fact that we're looking for truth and justice. We're weighing an issue or a situation, and we are. There have been talks about, the illegality of this election and all these things. But we're looking further beyond it. We're realizing that our political leaders are not all they are cracked up to be. And we should look at that, whether we're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. We need to look at that our political leaders, they are not perfect people. They are going to make mistakes. But there's a difference between making a mistake and holding yourself accountable and making the needed changes in yourself and try to rectify the wrong. There's a tendency that these individuals will use the law in their own favor. And because they have more connections, they have more powerful influence, they can get away from things that us, the ordinary citizens, cannot and will not. And so we're looking for the striving for balance and equilibrium as we transfer over into the new state of being. There's a difference between being impartial and being centered. I was always taught that to not make a decision is the worst decision you can make. And so when there is a conflict going on, you can't just sit there and step out of it, because unfortunately you are part of that web, that interconnecting force. And so whether you go for something or against something or not do anything, you're still making an effect on the world around yourself. We're seeing the triumph of reason, and that is one of the most beautiful aspects of this card, is that now we are seeing reason return to, the higher echelons of our society. But see, when I also talk about the political influences, we're also looking at the individual influences. For aren't we also political in our own selves? We have to determine for ourselves what's right or wrong. And the political system is where we guarantee a balance between all the citizenry that'll view that particular truth. So we need to be negotiating on where we stand on certain ideologies, certain beliefs and practices. certain means of economy. We need to negotiate. Now, they're talking a lot about, the Republican Party is talking a lot about unity right now and not wanting to be held accountable. And so with each of that part, we on the other side of the spectrum need, yes, be cautious, but negotiate that caution. We can't use the umbrella term that, oh, they are Trumpers, they are Republicans, they are Democrats. They are people first and foremost. And those who allow labels to limit themselves, they will have to deal with that on their own behalf. So we got to be negotiating on ideologies. We've got to be open to hearing what others have to say and to process that and see where we align and where we disalign and have a true, open-hearted, equal debate about what is appropriate for each individual and our society collectively. Now, I'm also having the feeling that this is not just about taking the right action, but that this right action isn't just an individual thing. It's not just what groups of people have been taught. It's more of an inner divine guidance. Some people would call it source. I call it the interaction between us over here and them over there, them in Anun, the other world. And so what I'm seeing here is that in this last week, the one that we just left from last Tuesday to this Tuesday, we are seeing the beginning of that negotiation. People who have clashed have finally sat there and said, okay, maybe you were right. We're a little late on the bandwagon. Forgive us. And, I'm a Scorpio. And so for me to forgive is really, really hard. If it's okay for you, forgive. If it's not, that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But be cautious in forgetting, because these very same people have had a huge effect on everyone else around them, and they should be held accountable. And so this is being last week's card is telling us that they are being held accountable, and that just like the Nuremberg trials, we got to treat each individual as a separate person. We cannot lump them all up together. Now for this next week, from this Tuesday to next Tuesday, I pulled the Nine of Pentacles. Now, the Nine of Pentacles is about being prudent and making assessments. It is very much a down-to-earth card, as all Pentacles are. It's about tallying and successfully handling of multifaceted venture. So this is keeping us on the level of politics, is what I'm getting. But it's also a level of our own individual callings, our individual work callings, those things that bring us joy, but is also a form of work. We're handling it. It is being successful at this moment. But having speculated and been proven right, now is the time for planning and diplomacy. As I had mentioned, we are now moving over from President Trump to President Biden. And if my last prophecy doesn't come true, heavens forbid, as many of my patrons and personal followers know, I had a vision state, which I have quite frequently, of a gun, the head of a person, and it was a very important person. The only word that crossed through my mind was assassination. And now, I had originally posted it, then I took it down, and then I talked to a few other people, and I've mentioned it a few other times here, in the interweb. And that ending of that time frame that I saw is within the next few days. Literally, I would not be surprised if it did happen tomorrow, especially with the seeing of so many people trying to sneak into the inauguration. If our news sources are correct in telling us, what is actually going on. But as with anything, you need to take it with a grain of salt. And so I took a step back, and all my other stuff that I'm talking about has come to pass. And so for this card, this is very touching for me personally, because I have unfortunately been proven right so far. So tomorrow is going to be my gauge on whether I feel justified and continuing to say that, I predicted something that has come to pass. But now is also the time that we need to take care in choosing our friends and confidants, because we are still in a divided country. We are in a divided world, and it's going to take more than what we've been through to cause those needed changes. And so we're losing friends left and right. It's just the way things are when you have conflicting views, and it's bound to happen. But I was always taught that when it comes to people who flow into your life, they are there for a reason and they are there for a season. In the end, the only thing that's a permanent communication is you and yourself. So we need to take care in choosing our friends and confidants, but we have to have compassion, patience, and effort to understand others. We can't. It doesn't seem right to just toss a person aside as if they were trash when they were so very important to you at one time. It just doesn't seem right. But now is a time to be a little more foresighted and to gauge our honorable behavior in interacting with others. This isn't a popularity contest, but we are a social society. And so we must be mindful of how we interact with others. And so for the week after this next Tuesday, I pulled the Four of Wands. Wands are about learning. Wands are a very passion-filled suit. And it's not necessarily a bad one. It seems good, but as with anything, there's always a counterbalance. And so the Four of Wands tells us that we are in a repose after a very difficult time. We have reached the prize, an unexpected celebration. And I'm guessing, if Sylvia Brown was writing her own book, that we're going to see the end of COVID within the next about 6 months. Or at least it'll be so pushed to the wayside that it won't be talked about. Not in the sense, more of a sense prophetically. It's not going to be something that's going to be as scary now with vaccines and stuff. Or at least that's going to be what's going to be in the news. Is it's going, it's achieved whatever it was meant to have happen, and we'll still talk about the post-COVID world and stuff, but basically, this is now a time for fruition, for those seeds that you planted during all these lockdowns. What were the seeds you planted? Now you're going to begin to see those seeds grow exponentially. And this is more on the economic route. A lot of us have had to learn to do things that we never thought we'd ever do. For me, myself, doing all these videos, speaking to people, teaching and guiding and healing, I never thought I would be doing these things right now. These were the things I dreamt about as a child. Reading Scott Cunningham, reading all these wonderful Llewellyn authors as a child. And now I may have grown away from a lot of those specific practices, but those were my foundation. And just the fact that people, were able to make a living doing what they loved is what springboarded me to learn more, to practice more, to really get into that realm I wanted to be in. And the realm I wanted to be in, and I kind of always knew I wanted to be, was I wanted to be a religious minister. I knew from the age of 7 when I started having prophetic dreams and stuff, and I discovered the world of Wicca and witchcraft and the occult. I knew that was my realm. That was my realm, and that's where my dream and calling was. It took hell and high water for me to get to where I am right now. If it wasn't for the support of my patrons, I love you guys. You guys are amazing. And I learned so much more from you guys than I think that I could ever pass on to you. You guys are amazing, and I love you so wholeheartedly. Thank you for supporting this ministry, supporting my work, and allowing me to begin the process of doing what I love, doing things that many in our society just either don't have the gumption to do or have been told you won't make a living doing it. But this is where my passion is, and it's all because of you guys. But back to the cards. This is a time for alliances and friendships, and we're going to see that as we hopefully get back into the whole Paris Climate Accords and all these international programs that we left during the last administration. We're seeing the tide turning in our favor individually. And with that in mind, we got to start laying the foundations for the future. And so now would be a perfect time to really look into your emotional and psychic well-being. Really take the seeds that you made during this time of COVID, this internal shadow work that we've all been kind of forced into. And now you're looking at what has grown from that, your strengths, your skills, and the stuff that you learned in this time. Social media, new forms of getting your message across, all these things. Now is the time to start doing it, to get out there and do it. Whatever that is, go and do it, because this will be the basis of your coming economic fruition. It is time to step away from those things that we have feared collectively and to put our energy and time and money into those things that really bring us love and joy, because we may end up living into a dystopia, but at least you want to be doing it something you love, right? I know I do. And so those were the 3 cards for this week. For last week, we had Justice. For this coming week, we have the 9 of Pentacles. And for the week after that, we have the 4 of Wands. So what it's looking like is that it's going to be a semi-smooth transition. I do think we should be on our guard during the inauguration due to not what the cards have said, but from what I have seen. Just be mindful, protect yourself. If you got any way to protect yourself, definitely have that ready, because we are in a powder keg and it can either get wet and become to nothing, or someone will light that spark, shoot that gun or whatever, and it could explode. That is unfortunately the political situation that we have been left with. Also, like I said, I received the gift of a green screen. And so if it's a little bit wonky, it's because my computer's so old and I can't run it at the best frame rates and stuff. Maybe someday in the future, I will be blessed enough to get a real setup going, to get a new laptop. But we will see. We'll see what the future holds. Right now, I just want to thank all my patrons. Again, your donations allowed me to get a beautiful headset, little blinders with speakers, because when I do most of my work for you guys, I not just go into sensation, but I turn inward. And so anyone who's done really intense visualizations knows that when you've reached that change from one frequency of consciousness to another, your eyes will flutter. And in my focus, I use a candle, and so I got that candle flame. And so when my eyes start to flutter as I'm seeing these visions happen, the candlelight will
will affect my eyes. And so it kind of pulls me right back from, the inner temple I do my work in. And so with your donations, I was able to get that blind dirt, and oh my God, it works amazing. I've had less times being pulled out of visualizations from candle flame than I ever have in my entire life, and I've been able to go so much deeper in your guys' distant healings. Like the silhouette of your outline has intensified, and of course, it's not just the tools. The stuff I have learned from Matt Oren's book, Psychic Witch, just like floors me. My skills got enhanced. I've been able to see things clearer. My ability to hear the spirits through audible hearing and stuff has improved. That happens more often now. Well, before it scared the crap out of me, but now I can kind of turn it on and off, and that was thanks to a few exercises in Psychic Witch. So I highly recommend, if you haven't gotten a hold of it, get a hold of it. This is the psychic book I wish I had when I was growing up. I probably wouldn't have turned out doing a lot of the things I did in my life that I am ashamed of if I would have had this book to bring my abilities under control, because it caused hell, especially before I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. This would have been so helpful in being able to turn off all the dreams and visions I had growing up, apocalypse and, all that stuff, which unfortunately a good chunk of those have already happened. But I highly recommend it. Psychic Witch, Matt Oren. You can find him on Facebook. Buy from Llewellyn. It's amazing. He's already in his 9th printing. So he's broken the bank a few times, and I'm proud of him. I am so proud of him. But anyways, thank you, everyone. This was the first episode of a new season of Tarot Tuesday, and I am your host, Reverend Adam Hayden, and I wish you all a blessed week, and we will see you next week, 5 p.m. Pacific time, here on YouTube. So share with a friend, comment, like, get this stuff out there. If you haven't seen on the chat stream, I do have the link for my Patreon. I love you guys. You guys are amazing, and I can't wait to produce so much more for you, especially now that I've learned how to use some of the software, because honestly, I feel like I'm killing it. See you guys next week. This was my show.